Hello everyone, hope you're having an enjoyable bank holiday weekend. The hardware finally turned up for the assembly table, the clamps and the bench dogs, so we can finally get to build this. But before we do that, what I want to do in this video is I want to show you how I drew it using Sketchup. So we're going to build an assembly table which is based on a design by Ron Paulk. But because I'm only working in a single garage, I haven't got a lot of room. So I want to make a much smaller assembly table. It's not going to take up much space. And what I want to achieve is I want to get the whole thing out of one 8x4 sheet of ply. This is going to have two functions, this table. One, it's going to allow me to clamp things to it. It's also going to give me a flat level surface to make stuff on. And the second use, it's going to basically operate as an outfeed table for the new table saw. It's all going to be demountable, it's going to sit on trestles, I can pack it away when I don't need it, so it's not going to occupy any space in the workshop. So let's get to building it in SketchUp. First of all, we'll start with a new project. I use the millimeters woodworking template. I just prefer to working millimeters. I find them easier to use than fractions. First thing we want to do is we want to build the base. So start with the rectangle tool, click, release and drag a rectangle. And before you click, we can actually type in the dimensions. So I want this table to be 800 wide, 1220 long. 1220 is a 4-foot standard sheet of ply. So I'm actually going to cut this off the end of one sheet. Now grab the PushPull tool, pull this up to give it some thickness, and then type in 18 millimeters. Enter. So there's our base panel. Now before I make that a component, I'm going to apply a texture. I'm going to come over to the materials here. I'm going to click on this wood veneer texture, and then I'm just going to click on this. Now you'll notice that that's only done one surface. What we can do, use the select tool, triple click so that we've selected the whole thing, select the material, click, and then it applies to all faces. Now we can right click, make it a component, give it a name, call it base, click create. And there we see the base has gone into our components directory. If we needed another base, we could just drag one out of there. Now we're going to build one of the sides. Again, click the rectangle tool, click on one corner, hover over the top corner so SketchUp knows I want to use it as a reference point, and then move the mouse up and we can drag a face vertically. And then all we need to do now is type in the height, 160 mm, and enter. Use the push-pull tool again to give us some thickness. Type in 18 millimeters and enter. Now we're going to use two tools to draw the circles, or the long ellipses or oblongs, if you like, that we're going to eventually push through. So initially I'm going to use the offset tool. I'm going to hover over the edge, click once and start to drag, and you'll see a line appear. I can let go of the mouse and then I can type in a dimension, 40 millimeters. So now that offset line is exactly 40 millimeters from the end and both the sides, leaving me a gap of 80 millimeters in the middle. Now I'm going to put some construction lines on here using the tape measure. The tape measure has two functions. I can click on an endpoint and I can actually measure a dimension, 1220. Or if I hover over one of the sides and click, I can drag a guide line or a construction line. So I'm going to drag this one to the midpoint. There, click. I'm going to drag another one from this end. I'm going to drag this in 80 millimeters. 40 millimeters. Enter. I'm going to drag another line in from this end, 40 millimeters. Enter. And then I'm going to do two from here, the same. I'm actually going to drag one in here. I'm going to drag this in 60 and drag this in 60. And when I come to do my circles, that's going to give me 40 mil in the middle. Get the circle tool. Now this will hover to the midpoint, come across to the construction line, and then click for the centre of the circle and then go to the edge. Similarly here, centre, edge, centre, edge. It's still using that reference point. You can see that faint green line, centre, edge. Go up to edit, delete all the guides. Then with the rubber, delete some of the lines that we don't need. So these corners we don't need. We don't need these two lines in the middle here. We don't need these two lines, and we don't need these middle parts of the circle. Because the circles and the lines touch each other, where they intersect, the lines are broken, allowing you to delete the bits that you don't want. So now using the push-pull tool, we grab hold of this. You can see the different faces. We grab hold of this inner face, click and push through. And if you kept pushing through, it would push right the way through like that. But we're going to push through until it says on face. And that means it's on the other face. And when we let go, that will disappear. Grab hold of this one, push through, on face, that will also disappear. Triple click to select everything. We're going to apply our material. And then we're going to right click, make this a component, give it a name, call it side, click create. And there we have it. And now we can simply just drag another side component out of the directory and place it on our model, and then just move it into position. And there we go, two sides. We're going to create the end in exactly the same fashion. Rectangle tool, that reference point to this point up here. We're going to get the push-pull tool, grab it, start dragging, type in a dimension 18 mil, enter. That's going to give it some thickness. And now again we're going to use the offset tool and the tape measure to draw some circles on the end here. So grab the offset tool, hover over it until it says on edge, click and drag, release, type in a dimension 40, enter. Get the measurement tool. I'm going to click on this edge and drag to the center. Click on this edge, come back 60, enter. Click on this, come this way, 60, enter. Click on here, come this way, 40, enter. I'm doing 40 because that's the radius of the circle, 40, enter. Because the distance between these two offset lines here is 80, half of that is 40. So this now gives me a circle that will touch all three edges. So grab the circle tool, hover on that midpoint. Sketchup will now know I want to use it as a reference. Come across, click, click on the outside intersection. Click on the line, click on the outside, click on the line, click on the outside, click on the line, click on the outside. Go up to edit, remove the guides, click on the little rubber and delete all the bits that we don't need. If you accidentally delete a bit by mistake, you can obviously do undo, go back a step and then click the right piece. There we go. Now push-pull tool again, hover over these centre holes, push them through till it says on face, let go. Push this through, on face, let go. Get the selection tool, triple click, everything's selected. Get the veneer, paste that onto the component. Right, now right click, make component, give it a name. I'm going to call it end panel and click create. Now I want 3 here. I want another one at the end obviously, and then I want one in the middle. So I'll grab one out of the components directory initially, place it on the model. I think I've just got to move that in. That's it. And then another way you can copy is I've got the move tool already selected you've got these 4 arrows you can see here. So if I press Control, that brings up a little plus symbol, and that means it's going to make a copy. Now I can zoom in, go to the midpoint of the component, click, and then drag it along until it snaps on the midpoint of the side panel. There, midpoint. Click again to release it, and there we have a copy. That's quite a simple way of doing it. Rather than dragging another one out of there, you can copy them directly on your model. So now we want to create the top. Again, we do the rectangle tool. We go from one corner, click, drag, to the far corner, click. That's made a top. We use the push-pull tool to give it some thickness. Click once, start to drag up. Type in 18mm, enter. Use the select tool, triple click, get the veneer, paste with the pattern. Now before we make that a component, I want to drill all the holes effectively in the top here. Now what we're going to do initially is draw one hole in the corner, and then we're going to copy it multiple times. So we'll start with some guidelines. The top's 800 across. I want my holes to be on 100mm centres, but I want the first one to be 50mm in from the edge. So I'll draw a guideline, click, start to drag in, and then type in 50. So that's now 50mm from the edge. And then in this direction, it's 1220. So I'll make the first one 60mm and then go 100 on centres. That'll leave me 60mm at the end. So hover over the edge, click, drag, and then type in 60, enter. So that gives me, that intersection is 50mm from this edge, 60mm from this edge. We can check that just by putting a tape measure on there, click, 60mm. So now grab the circle tool. Now most bench dogs are 20mm holes, so I'll hover over that intersection, I'll click, start to drag, and then I'll type in the radius 10mm and enter. Now before we start pushing those through, what I want to do is copy the rest of them, and there's a fairly easy way of doing this. So use the select tool, select that hole or circle as it is currently, use the move tool, press Control to bring up the little plus sign, which means I'm going to make a copy, and then hover over that intersection, use that as a reference point, click on that, and then start to move along the green axis. Now we can type in the distance, so 100mm, and enter. That gives me 1. Now before I exit completely out of that tool, I can now do multiple ones. So if I use the X as a times and then the number that I need, let's just guess at 7 and enter. That's not enough, so we'll go again. X 9 times 9 and enter. Still not enough. Times 11, enter. There we go. That's got us right to the other end. Now if I just check that, I can go up the other end there. And I can, on the centre of that circle, measure, that should be 60mm. There we go. so they are right. And the distance in between the circles, 100mm. So that's a simple way of copying multiple circles. I've drawn the first one, I've moved using the copy, and then used times to get a number of circles from one end to the other. Now what we can do, let's just delete these guidelines just to make things clearer. And now we select all of these circles, hold down the shift, you'll see a little plus minus symbol appear. That means you can select multiple items, and select all of these circles. And then using the same method we did to copy them up the board, use the move tool, press Control to get the little plus up, which means we're going to make a copy. And to be honest, you can use any reference point. So I'm just going to hover around the middle of the board here somewhere and click anywhere. And then as long as I'm travelling in the red direction, I know they're going to be on that axis, on that same line that's parallel to the end of the table. So as long as I stay on the red axis when I move initially, I know they're going to be in the right line. And then times, so type in 100 for the first distance and enter. And then before we exit completely, use times, which is basically multiply, and then guess how many. I think let's go 6, enter. Looks like we need another row, so times 7, enter. There we go, perfect. So there's all of our circles across the whole of the top. Now it just remains to use the push-pull tool and push them through to the other face. Now, please comment below if you know a quicker way to do this. I don't, unfortunately. I know a few shortcuts, but I don't know how to do this any quicker. What I would do is hover over one of the holes, and I would click on it, and so you can push it through, and you push it through, and then you hover over this face here, because this is the bottom edge, and it says on edge and then let go. And then if I look in that hole, you'll see that is actually now a hole. There we go. But unfortunately, I don't know a quicker way other than to push all of these through by hand. If anybody knows a way of making these holes in this top quicker than that method, then please do let me know. So I'm going to zip on, I'm going to do these, pause the video, and then we'll come back and finish off the final stages. We're just on the last couple of these holes push through now. I'm just using previous holes as a reference for that bottom edge. Last couple. There we go. Push this last one through. There. So all the holes are now through the top. We can just check just by panning around. Yeah, we can see holes from underneath. So they're all pushed through. So as I say, if anybody knows a quicker way of doing that, please do let me know, because that did take some time. Okay, so select tool, triple click the top. So everything's selected. Right click, make component, give it a name. We'll simply call that top and create. And again, if we look in our directory here on the side, we've now got the top, side, end panel and the base. And there we have it. There's our assembly table drawn in Sketchup quite quickly and simply. Didn't take very long at all. And then what I would do from here now is I'd develop that into a cutting plan, and I'll show you how I do that fairly simply. I grab additional components out of the directory, place them in my model, and then I start to build up a sheet of 8x4 ply. So I'll drag out a side panel. We have to just rotate this using the rotate tool. We'll go on the end of it, and with the rotate tool on that face, we can click in the middle, click somewhere on the blue axis, rotate it round. Once it's on the red axis, click again. That just rotates it through 90 degrees. And then use the move tool, grab a corner and click on there. Now, rather than drag another one out of the component directory and rotate that, I'm just going to copy this. So I've got the move tool already selected, press Control, brings up the little plus sign, use that corner as a reference, drag myself a copy, Control again, or I could just go ×2 and enter, and there we have it. Similarly to how we did the holes. Right, grab an end panel out, put that on the model. Now we've got to rotate this 2 ways. So let's look on a plan view from the top. There we go. Pick the rotate tool, zoom into that end, midpoint, come along the red axis, click once, swing it round till it's on the green axis, click again, and then go on to the end of the board, come down to the midpoint here, click once, come up, click again, rotate, red axis, click again. And then with the move tool, move it into position, use the plus, Control, brings up the plus symbol, grab that corner, make a copy. Now what I like to do is I like to move these and just so there's basically a saw kerf in the middle. So what we'll do initially is we'll grab the select tool, we'll select all of these pieces, we'll move, click anywhere, move along the red axis and just type in 3mm. That's going to be my saw kerf, and enter. Now grab just these pieces, move, 3mm, enter. Grab these pieces, grab these pieces, select, move, click, 3mm, enter, select these pieces, move, click, move along the red axis, 3mm, enter, and then the last couple of pieces, click the move tool, click, move along the red axis, 3mm, enter, and then the very last piece, move. This is just so I know I can get them all on a sheet of 8x4. And then what I'll do is I'll grab the rectangle tool, I'll come to this bottom corner here, use that as my reference, I'll click on that corner, and then I'll drag my mouse out as if I was making a sheet, and then I'll type in the dimensions. Longest dimension first, 2440, 1220, and that's a standard 8x4 sheet. Enter. There we go. So obviously the width is going to be exactly the same because I know I typed these dimensions in originally, and that is 1220 long, that, so it's going to fit on that sheet exactly. And then with my 3mm cuts in between all of these components, that's going to leave me a little bit left on the end of that board. And if I grab the tape measure, you can click on there, click to the end, and then you'll see in the comments down the bottom here 22.5mm. So that's actually going to leave me slightly less than 1 inch left over. So if I've got a slightly thicker saw kerf, I've got a little bit to play with. And then lastly, what I'd normally do is, if this was a complicated piece, I'd throw some dimensions on here. So grab the dimension tool, click these reference points, and then put some dimensions out here. Click these reference points, and then I can put some dimensions on these smaller panels. Click, click, and then just move that to where I want it. That one didn't go where I wanted it. Hang on a second. Undo, click, click, drag, click, click and drag. Just pan round here a bit. That's better. And then finally put a dimension on these 2 pieces. Click, click and drag. Ah, that must have gone on the wrong point there. We'll just undo. We'll do that one again. Click, click and drag. And then finally click, click and drag. Ah. A little bit fiddly those dimensions, but there we go. There we have it. You can kind of build up. I'll just delete that guide. You can build up a cutting plan once you've built all your components and built your object in SketchUp. It's simply drag out the components from the component directory and then lay them out as if you was laying them out on an 8x4 sheet, and in that way you can just plan the best use for your material. So there we go. Hope you found that to be of interest to you. I hope there's been a few tips there that have been useful to you when you come to draw your own projects. And I'll print off a copy of that plan. I'll also put a link in the description below. It's not one of my plans, obviously it's Ron Paulk's design, so you know it's a free copy. I'm just going to put it up on my 3D warehouse, and I'm also just going to put a link in the description below. So if you don't want to draw it up yourself, there'll be a link to a PDF file below. Do give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Make sure that you're subscribed, because next week we're actually going to be buying the timber and we're actually going to be making this assembly table in the workshop. So I look forward to seeing you on the build. Cheers!